Empire.
Hello, postseason. Jaden Daniels has done it again. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about the Commanders' playoff clinching win over the Atlanta Falcons, 30-24 in overtime. A lot of heroics here. Of course, a lot has to do with Jaden Daniels. But let's set the scene first. First of all, they clinched the playoff spot. They currently sit in the number 6 spot because they have the tiebreak over Green Bay. They beat Dallas. They'll be in the number 6 spot. You may end up playing either Tampa Bay or the Los Angeles Rams in the first round. So that could be a big deal. So beat Dallas, and you got the number 6 seed, and going to be on the road. But it could be with a game that's just, it's going to be more interesting. It could be more interesting. We'll see. Anyways, first time they've won 11 games since the 1991 season. Tremendous accomplishment by this group after having won only 4 games last year. They hired a coach in Dan Quinn that others said they didn't really want, that they settled for. Well, that was always BS. They drafted a guy in Jaden Daniels that some people said he didn't want to come here. Well, that was BS too. They got a GM in Adam Peters who was really good. They have an owner in Josh Harris who knows how to build things. Now they have an 11-win team in a playoff spot. So congrats to you guys for sticking this out. It has to be feeling pretty good. I know some of you guys have tears in your eyes, and you should. This is what sports are all about, man. Having this kind of year. Look at what they have done. They have over exceeded expectations from the jump. Now, I will say they hit a point this year where I thought, hey, based on the schedule, based on the quarterback they have, they could win 11 or 12 games. And it's remarkable that that's what they're in position to do next week by beating Dallas. But this is a tremendous accomplishment for them. And again, I'm happy for you guys for having stuck it out. There are players here who had to stick it out because this is where they play. And, but again, look at the last 3 weeks that this team has been through and the games they continue to win. They've won on a Hail Mary this year to beat Chicago. They stopped a 2-point conversion to beat New Orleans. They won on a final play. The final play from scrimmage against Philadelphia. They had a game-winning field goal to beat the Giants early in the year. Then they had today where you come back from 10 points down, second week in a row, where you have to make this comeback in the second half, and they did it. And they won because it's just kind of who they are. And as someone else, I don't know who coined this phrase, but they call Jaden Daniels the Slim Reaper. Not a bad nickname because he's got the ball late in the game. You're in trouble on the other side of the field. Note, I can guarantee you, folks, there's a lot that this team still needs. They still need to fortify that defense. They still need to get more talent around Jaden Daniels, especially at receiver. Listen, man, there was one point they had in the game. They have Brayson Tremaine, Jamison Crowder, and KJ Osborne running routes late in the game, and they're winning. So they need more around him there. But they're 11-5 because there's a really good foundation in their organization. And because they made the right choice at quarterback, they got the absolute right kid for the first time in a long, long time. So, that's what they have. So, again, 11 wins for the first time since 1991. Chance to get the number 6 seed. None of that stuff would have been possible. You would have thought possible unless you were the most optimistic Commanders fan ever. Because even at the beginning of the year, folks, I thought 7 wins. But I thought that because I wasn't sure how to process some of the stuff that we knew. I felt like, and you could feel the closeness and the bond these players had back in the spring. You had Andrew Wiley talking to us in a spring OTA. He talked to us 3 hours after practice had ended, and he said, there are still guys in the locker room because they don't want to go home. And when you hear that, you pay attention because that means guys like being around one another. They bonded more even during those joint practices in New York and then Miami, where they stayed for a few days. Then you had the week out in Arizona. That turned out to be a really good week for them. You don't get those chances to bond in this era as much as they had this year. That's one reason why teams like to go away. And I think it's why they will in the future, because it just develops something different. And they did stay together here in Ashburn during training camp, but it's just different when you're on the road and you're together and you're away from everything. And that's what they had. So it creates a different level of bond. And that's one thing you felt. I could feel that in the spring. You could feel it in the summer. But how would it pay off? It would help them maximize who they would be. But what was that maximum level? And because you didn't know, Jaden Daniels, there was never a point that I felt, oh, I don't think he's going to be any good. There was always like, this kid is going to be really good because of what you see, the extra work that you knew he put in, the talent that he had. And it's the talent plus the work equals 25 touchdown passes as a rookie, right? 11-5 for this first year as a starting quarterback. Nobody wants to face this guy. Again, all these issues they have, but nobody's going to want to face the Commanders because of Jaden Daniels. You watch him get out of situations time and time again tonight. He did it against the Falcons to break their hearts on multiple occasions. Looks like he's going to be sacked, spins out of there, gets a first down. You know, that's what he kept doing. There's a reason why Dan Quinn felt comfortable going for it on 3 4th downs and converting all 3, 19 for 22 this season on 4th downs. That's a tremendous rate, but you do it because there's confidence in what you have, but the belief in number 5. And it is so rare to have that belief in a guy who's a rookie. And like, I don't think anybody here ever looks at him as a rookie. And one player even said that nobody looks at him like that because he's never carried himself that way. He's only carried himself like a vet. And that's because of the approach and the work ethic that he has. And that's why they're in this position, is exactly because of that work. And, you know, you have, there were tense moments tonight. Like the Falcons go down and tie this game in an unlikely fashion. They have 2nd and 26. They go and tie it. You're thinking, oh, wow. Then these guys win the toss. And as soon as they win the toss, like, kid's going to get it done because that's just what he does. And sure enough, that's what he did. Game-winning drive. They needed 75 yards because they had lost 5 on a penalty. So of those 75 yards, he had a hand in 74. There was Brian Robinson had a 1-yard run. The rest of it, Jaden Daniels running, Jaden Daniels throwing. And he caps it off with the touchdown pass to Zach Ertz. I'll get to that in a minute and why Ertz is so important. That play shows it. But there was just obvious jubilation in the stadium. This atmosphere was tremendous. I don't know if it was quite as good as 2012 because that was against the Cowboys, and to clinch it against the Cowboys Sunday night, I don't know if it gets better for a Washington fan. This is pretty damn close. There was also about 20,000 less here because they've shrunk the stadium size, but it was a really good atmosphere and a fun atmosphere, and it's been like that all season. 7-2 at home this season. Best home record they've had a long time, but just not only that, but the number of games they played that were just fun to watch. It's been a long time since you and I mean, I've covered it. You watch it since we've seen an offense that was fun to watch. This one is and has been. And again, I think Cliff Kingsbury deserves a lot of credit. I think the first guy he would credit is Jaden Daniels. And I would say deservedly so because the kid can do a lot. And, you know, that's why they're in this position. But you go in the locker room, you had Jaden Daniels hugging Doug Williams in the middle of the locker room. You have Dan Quinn going up to Daniels and having a nice little moment there with him. You had Adam Peters and Nick Allegretti sharing some kind of a drink that's probably not suited for those under 21, but they did it. And it's funny because there must have been some sort of agreement like, hey, if we make the playoffs, we're going to have this. Well, they had it. And I could hear Allegretti thanking him for bringing him here. So there was just one. You had Tress Way, who has been here the longest since 2015, just talking about like what it means to him and just how his voice was hoarse because he was yelling the whole 4th quarter. So like that guy's into it. He's one of you while he's on the sidelines, you know. And then he talks about like he said we just freaking win. We won 11 games. What? And then he talked about, you know, with Jaden Daniels, that dude is freaking awesome. Like that was a theme throughout this locker room about praising Jaden Daniels. The one guy who doesn't praise Jaden Daniels is Jaden Daniels. He doesn't sit there and toot his own horn. He's not a guy, as Zach Ertz said, he's not a rah-rah guy. He doesn't need to say how good he is because everybody else does it for him. And not that Daniels sitting up there puffing out his chest. You know, the first thing he said when he got sat down tonight in the post-game presser was, I'm tired. And who can blame him? Like you watch the game, 227 yards passing, 127 yards rushing, 3 more touchdown passes, including the game winner to Ertz. So just a busy night and one where, like, you know, you saw as – so here's one of the things Dan Quinn said. Again, Dan Quinn is close to Raheem Morris. Now, I mentioned this the other day. I don't think people quite understood this. Raheem Morris succeeded Dan Quinn as the interim. He was the interim coach who replaced Dan Quinn after Quinn was fired 5 games in this season. But they've stayed fairly close. He said after the game, he told Raheem Morris, man, there's some things that 5 does that you can't put on a card, meaning you just can't practice. He said in the second half, especially, there were some strong plays, and he just willed it. Yes, he did. You saw it time and again. And we can go into detail more on that later. Tonight's just about for you guys celebrating what they've done, what the accomplishment this team has achieved, and knowing that you have a quarterback, like this is the expectation now going forward. Where you're going to win 11, 12 games every year, but this is the expectation going forward, that you need to be in these kind of situations all the time. As long as that kid's playing quarterback, there's no reason not to. So you had in the locker room, Jeremy Reeves. Guess what? You probably saw it, but Jeremy Reeves got engaged after the game. And I talked to him on Friday about this, so I knew it was coming. So did Nikki Javala. But he and I were talking outside the locker room. He said that, it's Michaela Worley. They've been best friends since high school. They went to the same, they played in the same conference in college. And in the last couple of years, they started to date. And he's like, she's my best friend. And so when you hear that, it's like, it's awesome. And so he told me, like, he's got the ring, he's going to do it, but it was like an expected coronation. So you're thinking for a minute, like, what if? And for a minute there in the game, you're like, well, it might not be tonight, but it was, because that's just the kind of night it was. But for Reeves, this is a great capper for someone who's been here since 2018. It said it's just a blessing to be on the other side of all this, and then to cap it off that way by posing and having her say yes. That has to feel really, really good. And let's go back to Daniels, because, again, there are times it's Bryson Tremaine, Jamison Crowder, and KJ Osborne on the field with him, and he's making it work. Like, how is that possible? But it's a credit to him. It's a credit to Kingsbury for the play calling when you're putting guys like Olamide Zaccheaus in position to make plays. And you can do that because you've got, these, I'm not creative formations necessarily, but he makes it work. And he knows what guys do well, and that's where he puts them in the position to succeed. And I think what you can look at it too is that this is not the most talented receiving core, but they have been productive because of Daniels. Just think what it could be as they add more talent to that group. And listen, Terry McLaurin had 1 catch for 5 yards. They scored 30 points. Nobody's talking about, obviously, he has to get the ball more. They scored 30 points tonight. And the goal is to win. And when you can win, when you didn't have much of a running game in the first half, your best receiver isn't getting the ball because they're taking him away. There were times where I thought maybe he had a one-on-one. It looks like Terrell was matched one-on-one, and he would just funnel him over to the safety. So they're clearly paying a lot of attention to him to take him away, make someone else beat you. Well, guess who did? Zaccheaus did. 8 catches, 85 yards, touchdown catch to cap the first drive. Had a second touchdown catch that was nullified by the Cosme penalty. And by the way, I've never seen Cosme or Lyman more pissed off than I saw Cosme on that, jumping up and down, showing the refs what his technique that he was using, why it shouldn't be a hold. So anyways, I'll let offensive line experts determine that, line coaches or whomever. You can leave me a note if you think it was or wasn't a hold. I saw one quick replay, and that was it. So anyways, but Zaccheaus really came through. He left the game late with a cramp, but he was in pain afterwards. But man, he's a guy he's the kind of guy that really, again, I talked about this on Friday on my 5 things I think about guys like Nick Ballore, Zaccheaus, Jalen Holmes, Sheldon Day, guys who came here were not expected to be a big part of anything, who have contributed in a big way to winning. It's Jamison Crowder, the same thing. I think that's where that's when you have a special team, when you get guys like that and you hit the right guy. It's why I always say it's fit, not names, it's fit. And they found guys who fit. Now what you really like are highly talented guys, who fit as well. Like that's the ultimate goal. And they found one in Frankie Louvu, right? And you also have a guy in Zach Ertz who's a veteran nearing the end of his career. 2 tough years for him, injury-filled years in Arizona. People thought he might be done. He's not. He had a really good year. He had another good game. He had the game-winning catch. On the catch, he shows his veteran savvy with the little route running. Now, maybe someone else can run the same route, but curls out of he's lined up it's in man formation, or man coverage by the Falcons. He just kind of curls his route, bends it to the outside, gets the defender to widen a little bit, and just cuts back inside. Boom, there it is. And it's that vet savvy route running. It also earned him a $250,000 bonus, that touchdown did. But it's just veteran savvy. And that's what Ertz has brought. Like, one of the things when I remember talking to him before the season, and he talked about just what as a veteran, where do you help? Like, you've lost some stuff, right? Because you've lost some speed, you've lost this, but what have you gained? And it's really the wisdom, and especially in the red zone. And you've seen that time and time again with him, where he's able to get open in the red zone and become a strong red zone target simply because he knows where to get to, he knows how to set up a route, and that's what he did on that play. So, just a really good job. Yeah, and again, on fourth down, you have Jaden Daniels coming through with two conversions with his arm, one with his leg. The first one was huge, and credit to Quinn for going for these. It's a 4th and 2 on the first drive. You got a really good drive going. You had the turnover because of Quan Martin with the pick. Fourth down and 2. You have a fake handoff to Robinson. He rolls to the left. You got two options: Sinnott, or you got Zacchaeus kind of coming back to the middle there. The safety's in stress. Take your pick. And he picked Zacchaeus. Touchdown, gets it going. But then you have Jeremy McNichols, another guy here. 4th down and 5, picks up 6 yards because he runs hard. Chris Rodriguez runs hard. That guy's going to warrant more playing time as we move forward because he brings energy and he's always getting extra yards. Like, he's running with way more of a purpose this year than even last year. Like, I liked him last year, but he surprised me because at the beginning of this season, in the training camp, he was not looking like this. Clearly, a light went off for him, whether it's just more understanding the offense or what, but he's running really hard. Every time tonight, he's getting extra yards. It's hard to keep guys like that on the bench for too long, especially when, it may not be all of Brian Robinson's fault that the run game hasn't been working because the line has not done its job, always creating holes in there. But bottom line is Rodriguez has been productive, and I think he's going to warrant more time as we move forward. Not just to bump Robinson out, but it's just to give him a little bit more time for sure as well. And Robinson ran better in the second half as well. So it's really been interesting to cover this team over the years and to cover a year like this. And just to get personal for a minute, but, I've covered a lot of Drek and I've seen a lot of Drek, and there hasn't been a lot of hope here. And the first time I felt that hope was driving to the first home opener last year when Josh Harris took over. It wasn't because I thought that team was going to be very good. I thought at best they could win like 8 games or so. And it turned out I was off by a few. But I do remember thinking there's hope finally for the first time in more than 2 decades because I think you have the right owner. And then when you get Daniels, you see him, it's like, you guys are going to have a lot of fun with this one. And the atmosphere tonight was tremendous. I don't think it was quite as good as 2012. Again, I think fewer people here. That game was against Dallas, but you had the comparison is you had 2 young quarterbacks who you thought could do something for a long time. Well, they couldn't be more different and in their approach at all. Robert was never beloved like this at all by his teammates. Jaden is much more of a film nerd and just a game, the way he prepares. I have way more confidence that he's going to be able to sustain. Now, I will say, after Robert's rookie year, you thought this is it for 10 years. They're going to be really good. But then when things started to get stripped away, you realize it's going to be hard. This one, it's the complete opposite because players love this kid. And here's what, like Zach Ertz said. So I talked to Ertz before the season for a story on Jaden, and he even said at that time, he said, "This is before the season. I'm not telling you he's going to be good at some point. He said, I'm telling you he's good right now." So this is what he also said after the game. He said, "Ultimately, it comes down to having a really good quarterback in this league if you want to be a good team. And from the moment I got here, seeing Jaden out there, I continually said, this guy isn't someone that's going to be good. He's good now. Boom. And when you have that position situated in this league, you're going to have a chance. And so this organization is in a great spot for years to come. And I can't say enough good things about him." For sure. So that's what, and that gets echoed throughout the locker room. And it's why, and as I said, he's not a rah-rah guy. He doesn't need to go up and say how good he is and all that. And he covers up a lot of sins and flaws. The defense struggled in the first half. They only gave up 17, but some of that was because Michael Penix was off on a lot of throws that I thought could have been that guys were there. And so they got kind of bailed out by that, but they also got helped by Daniels in the second half and just the way the offense controlled the ball. Look at this, 13 minutes, 15 seconds of clock for the offense in the first half. For the game, it was 41-32. So in the second half, it was about 37 minutes, 15 seconds or so. Washington had the ball for more than 28 minutes in the second half. That's how you keep down a Bijan Robinson. Now, having said that, they let the Falcons go down on a late drive, and they let him convert a second and goal from the 26 with a bullet of a throw from Penix. Like, that kid's going to be good too. I wonder, he's going to have to settle down with improve with his accuracy from what we saw tonight. But man, he's got some laser arm. He's got a lot of poise as well. But the defense did a better job against Bijan Robinson in the second half. So, first half for Robinson, 13 carries, 82 yards. For the game, 17 for 90. One of the things that they were doing in the second half, and I have to go back and watch the game to see if they were doing this in the first half as well, but in the second half, his first 2 carries for sure, it was a lineup they couldn't use for a while because John Allen was hurt, but John Allen was in there. You had was over on the left side. You had Holmes, another defensive end outside on the left, but then you had Allen and Johnny Newton inside, and he had Deron Payne as the defensive end on the right side. Then that one worked. So, like, on one play, it was Jalen Holmes just basically getting some penetration, but it was John Allen sliding down the line and not getting moved off and getting in position to make the play. That's what you had to have. And so that's what they started to have. So they did a better job there. They allowed some big pass plays for sure, and that was the downfall in the second half. And it's why they almost cost themselves a game. But they did better there. So we'll get into more of the defense later. Not the best night in the first half. And I think they're fortunate that some of those throws were off, and they've got to be more consistent in the run game, because whoever you're going to play in the playoffs, they're going to try. That's what they're going to do. They're going to try and test you there the whole time. And, can you get Jaden Daniels to keep making these plays to bail you out? Penalties is another issue. Was it 13, I think, tonight for 105, something like that? And I was going to say it should have cost them the game, just like I thought 5 turnovers last week would cost them the game, and somehow it didn't. Well, because of number 5. But you had Mike Samuel lining up off sides in a field goal, giving the Falcons new life and eventually leading to a touchdown. Cosme Whiten with a couple holding, a few penalties. Brandon Coleman had a couple penalties, but he also had, like, sometimes where I'm not sure he knew. There were a couple times where the Falcons, I don't know if they confused them but there were some times where he gave up a sack because, you start to block down because you see Ertz out here taking him, but he's releasing. It seemed like he wasn't sure on some plays what the assignment was, but whether it's confusion, whether it was because Tyler Biadasz was out, and by the way, Biadasz left the locker room in a walking boot, I don't know, but they've got to clean that up as well, because it was not their best game for sure. However, when you have Jaden Daniels, you can make some plays and live to tell about it in a very positive way. So here we are, folks, 11 wins, getting ready for the playoffs. They can still get that number 6 seed. All they have to do is beat Dallas, and you have the 6th seed. So a lot to look forward to with this group. And like I said, you should feel these kind of seasons don't come around often. I'm not even talking about championships. So whatever happens from here on out, like, it's been a hell of a ride for this group. Look at the fun they look at the life they've injected into this fan base. Where was this fan base a year ago? How downtrodden were you? Think about that. Like, Ron Rivera's tenure was ending. You didn't know yet about the GM. You didn't know yet the coach or the quarterback. We were just getting started in the debating or the discussion about the quarterback. And a year ago, I think a lot of people just was going to be Drake May. The more you watch Jaden Daniels, the more you saw on film what you saw out here tonight. But just think about where you're off the fan base, just you would put up with too much, right? Well, you've been rewarded. So there you go, folks. That's it from me. Congratulations to you guys for sticking this out, and hope you enjoy this.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.